Agus gwynwysle ta os an dawn armsa fe in siulaf inov eg an forum fondúracht Eurofound fe coig agus gur míle maithe go galéir sochtan fáinte Chris of Rome. Mar tá sign roll eg Eurofound Arabi an gníomhaireacht Orpach ag a bhfuil mandáid le down chinílacha marachtála agus ibre a ausú de hiránig nach Europa. I déobh idirflé bunathe ólas I dro polisathe sóisialta, fostíochta agus polisathe a bhaineann le hobar a chur chun cín agus é scú. Agus credim go daingin nach raibh an signróil sin chomh tácht a chríomh agus atá sé níis, agus éiríonn leis an róil sin bunús na bar haula déan lathí atá a grílár or go hionscail orpach chur anúil. So, that was in Gaelic for those who may not be as well versed. And delighted to be with my colleague, Minister for Social Protection, Derek Cleary. And I'm going to thank the commitment and the professionalism that Eurofound brings to its work, convey my sincere appreciation to Executive Director Ivalo Calfin, and to all the staff in Loughlinston Town House, and your proficiency in Irish as well is heartening. This is a flagship event of the European Foundation for the improvement of living and working conditions, the Foundation Forum. And in that context, I want to extend a special welcome or Céad Míle Fáilte this morning to Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Roxana Minzatu, who has responsibility for social rights and skills, quality jobs and preparedness, and also to Lee Anderson, Chair of the European Parliament Employment and Social Affairs Committee. You are particularly welcome here this morning. And it's an honour for me to have this opportunity to celebrate the agency's 50th anniversary, a milestone that is deeply intertwined with the history of Ireland's membership of the European Union. The establishment of Eurofound was a significant institutional development in Ireland's first presidency of the Council. It is also important at this stage to acknowledge the significant contribution of Dr. Patrick Hillery, who served as our Minister for Foreign Affairs when Ireland signed the treaty to join the then European communities in 1972. And Dr. Hillery served as Social Affairs Commissioner upon her accession in 1973, progressing the Social Action Plan that led directly to the establishment of Eurofound in 1975. He was elected President of Ireland the following year, and he performed the official opening of the Eurofound offices in Loughlinstown in October of 1978. He was probably one of the more significant figures in Irish political history, often understated because he was a quietly spoken man, but his work in education in particular laid the foundations for really significant investment in education, and also the development of what became known as the regional technical colleges, now technological universities. And he developed a model of third level education that was particularly related to the work environment and the skills environment. He was way ahead of his time. When he opened the Eurofound offices in 1978, he made the following point, and I quote, "Nobody would deny that economic progress is important for the people of Europe, but the cost of that progress to their health and to the environment where they live should not be permitted to be excessive," unquote. And that captures well, I suppose, how the goal of improving living and working conditions was largely seen at that time. It has evolved in the intervening period. To many people at that time, the trajectory of economic progress seemed clear, dominated as it was by the industrial technologies of the time. But policymakers recognised the need to be attentive to managing negative externalities, which were seen mostly in terms of mitigating risks to human health and to the natural environment. Economic development on its own was not enough, and there needed to be a focus on improving conditions for workers across society and the economy. In this regard, a long-term perspective and a holistic approach was and remains essential. Realising our goals of long-term productivity growth, enhanced human well-being, and protecting the biosphere will all rest on the same foundation of that is the skills and capabilities of our people. And it is only by unlocking the full potential of the human resources at our disposal the talents and creative potential of each and every European citizen that we will successfully navigate the period ahead. And that is why I welcome the theme that you have chosen for the Foundation Forum of 2025, Europe's social model as the key to competitive growth. Eurofound plays a distinctive role in promoting and facilitating knowledge-based dialogue towards stronger social employment and work-related policies. Its unique tripartite governance structure, bringing together government, employer and trade union perspectives, is particularly well suited to shaping consensus on necessary labour market and human capital building reforms. This includes providing the empirical foundation for establishing common ground across differing national perspectives and institutional traditions. The evidence that Eurofound has gathered through its research is reflected in no small way in the European Pillar of Social Rights. The European Working Conditions Surveys, launched in 1990, and the European Quality of Life Surveys, launched in 2003, have both proved indispensable in terms of the comparative and longitudinal data they provide on working and living conditions. Important political initiatives that have been strongly influenced by this research include the Gender Equality Strategy, the Work-Life Balance Directive, and the Youth Guarantee. Eurofound research also plays a crucial role in strengthening European competitiveness. You provide the rigorous evidence and empirical insight needed to understand how work, skills, and enterprise performance are evolving in the face of mega trends like digitalisation, the green transition, demographic change, and shifting patterns of globalisation. For example, the recent study on SME digitalisation provides valuable evidence on how digital adoption shapes both productivity and job quality. By tracking developments in working life, measuring skills shortages, and analysing workforce ageing and new forms of work, Eurofound research helps us understand the underlying dynamics of productivity and competitiveness that are reshaping our economies. In linking these insights to practical policy lessons and applications, Eurofound supports the design of forward-looking measures to ensure that Europe remains an attractive place to live, to work, and to invest in. These will be important issues for Ireland as we assume the rotating presidency of the Council for the 8th time in the second half of 2026. As a country, we are rightly proud of our contribution to significant European Union milestones during our previous presidencies. These include hosting the first ever European Council meeting in Dublin in 1975, supporting a common approach to German reunification in 1990, and of course, the historic Day of Welcomes in May of 2004, when the European Union gained 10 new member states in its biggest ever enlargement. An enlargement will be on our agenda in the second half of next year also. We look forward to the immense privilege of working on behalf of the 450 million people that call the European Union their home, advancing the common European interest and improving the lives of citizens right across the Union. The Government has begun consultations with our social partners, stakeholders, and with other European Union member states to help prepare Ireland's presidency policy priorities. A public consultation is also open for submissions. We very much welcome your inputs as we advance work to develop our policy programme and priorities. Eurofound's role in supporting the rotating presidency of the Council extends far beyond simple research provision. The agency's half-century of institutional memory and its established relationships with social partners and policymakers across all member states make it an indispensable facilitator of dialogue. Particularly strong examples under the current Danish presidency include the research informing September's high-level conference on affordable and sustainable housing and the high-level conference earlier this month on disability independent living in tomorrow's Europe. We look forward to the Quality Jobs Roadmap that will be presented by Executive Vice President Micheál and her colleagues in the European Commission before the end of the year, informed by extensive public consultation and social partner engagement that has already taken place. The Quality Jobs Roadmap will set an ambitious employment agenda for the European Union to remain competitive, innovative and fair, and to create a level playing field that prioritises high standards for quality jobs. And these are issues that Ireland will look to advance during our presidency next year. Here in Ireland, the government understands the values of social dialogue as a way of maximising common understanding and engagement between all sectors of society. We have long recognised the importance of such engagement as we tackle the many economic, social and environmental challenges facing the country. The Labour Employer Economic Forum, or LEAF as we call it, which I chair as Taoiseach, represents one such mechanism for tripartite social dialogue, through which there has been meaningful, systematic and timely involvement of social partners in the design and implementation of employment and social policies. The value of this engagement was recently demonstrated with the launch of Ireland's Action Plan to promote collective bargaining. And this plan aligns with our obligations under the European Union Directive on adequate minimum wages and reflects our belief that collective bargaining, when pursued voluntarily and in good faith, is a strategic tool for building both resilient enterprises and a more equitable society. Taking inspiration for Eurofound's lead, our own Department of Enterprise, Tourism and Employment is co-funding an extensive cross-border labour market survey, the Working in Ireland survey. And this work is well underway, and we expect results and research outputs soon, which will deepen our understanding of unfolding work patterns and attitudes to work in Ireland at this time. Let me also take the opportunity to acknowledge the important role of the European Economic and Social Committee as the voice of organised civil society in Europe. And we were delighted, and I was delighted to see an Offaly man, Seamus Boland, take on the presidency of this important institution earlier this year. He has been an outstanding advocate on the civic society side in Ireland for many, many years, and indeed across Europe. And we look forward to hosting the annual meeting of the Presidents and Secretary-Generals of the European Economic and Social Committee and of the National Economic and Social Councils during our presidency. The world we live in as Europeans is changing, and we must continue to change with it. This is a challenging time in global affairs, with continuing conflicts across the world, trade disruptions and pressures on the multilateral rules-based system. The European Union remains the leading global exemplar of sophisticated multilateralism and collective decision-making at its finest. As an unsurpassed example of successful cooperation and integration, the European Union has nothing to fear from deep and active engagement with global partners, not just those with whom we are generally of like mind, but also those with whom discussions can be more challenging. Our treaties make clear that we are engaged in the world not only to promote our own values and interests, but also to make a contribution to peace, security, and sustainable development, to promote free and fair trade, to work for the eradication of poverty and the protection of human rights, and to ensure the observance and development of international law, including respect for the UN Charter. Taking such a positive, broad and ambitious approach is, in my view, the only way to ensure that Europe can unlock the full potential of our positive influence on issues of global concern, such as climate change. As I made clear recently, when I delivered Ireland's national statement at COP30 in Belém, Brazil, climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is a daily reality, and we are all feeling its consequences. I also express my serious concern that the spirit of common purpose is weakening. There are other threats and crises that can seem more pressing, including geopolitical turbulence, economic pressures, conflict, war and dislocations, but global temperatures are still rising and the clock is ticking, and we must act now. Before I conclude, it's worth recalling the context in which Eurofound was established 50 years ago. Ireland's average incomes at the time were roughly 2/3 of the then European average. The so-called marriage bar, requiring women to give up their employment, was only newly abolished in Ireland. Joining the European communities was a catalyst for transformative economic and social changes in the decades since. Your conference today looks to the future against the backdrop of fast-evolving digital developments. Your deliberations will examine important questions around future-proofing work, the impact of AI on the labour market, the future of social investment, and the role of the social partners in reclaiming and renewing the European social model. On AI, I had a young 16-year-old who called into my office yesterday. She spent a day in the Taoiseach's building and in Parliament, and she came to Ireland 4 years ago from India. Her parents came to work, and she had two issues to talk to me about: AI and the issue of tension around the migration question and safety and security. On AI, she was fascinating. She's a writer at 16 years of age. Wrote me a beautiful poem about the experience of the migrant in a new land. But what was interesting is she was very worried about AI displacing the creativity of the human being. And she's observing what's happening in her class and in her school in terms of the use of AI, in many ways suppressing the thought process in terms of how you get to the introduction of an essay to the conclusion of an essay. If you use ChatGPT, whatever, you're missing out on all those kind of formative sort of processes. It was a 16-year-old was making that point to me yesterday in an interview with me. The interview became the other way around. I think I was just listening to her presentation. I mention it because I think we'll hear of her again. But I do think it's interesting that we all talk about AI in terms of the economic, the energy, etc., macro trends. And here's a 16-year-old observing what's happening in the classroom and looking at, say, fairly disruptive impacts on basic learning and behavioral change that will impact people's capacities, self-reliance, and thought processes. It was heartening in many respects. She had similar views to my own and been in having that fundamental belief in the human brain and the originality and creativity of the human brain should always be supreme and should always take primacy. And that was her message to me yesterday. I've digressed somewhat, but I think it's important to introduce the voice of a young 16-year-old migrant in Ireland. The other side of the story was that sense of the migrant feeling the need to suppress their own culture a bit, feeling that they're being observed differently by others. She really cut through in her writing and so forth. And that's a very significant issue for us and for the European Union, because our workforce is now a workforce made up of many different nationalities in every one of our member states. And so that then speaks to policy, culture, and how we talk about migration as governments and how we talk about migration more generally, and trying to get in underneath and understand the psychology and the impacts of language and of commentary on the migrant worker experience also. Which of course I use worker, but it's societal. These are members of our community and our society. And the path to future prosperity and success is about human capital. Human capital is now the ingredient that determines economic growth and societal growth into the future. Ireland is home to many companies, etc. We grow many companies. Everyone I meet in industry and economy talk about one thing: human capital as the key to driving things forward. And therefore, we have to look after people. And we have to look after people in the workplace, and we have to look after people in society more generally as new trends and new challenges arise. And I think that's the essence of the democratic ideal at the heart of the European Union. And this democratic ideal, which is building together our bridge to a better future, is one that Eurofound is uniquely positioned to support. Please accept my very best wishes for the rest of your proceedings here today. I have every confidence in the quality of the contribution that you will continue to make. I salute your work and wish you the very best. Thank you very much indeed, and go rian maith agaibh go léir.